This is Jared. We have many requests for additional information as far as what Sharon saw with other coins. Just to know that she's not able to look at every coin. She's actually not feeling well. She hasn't felt well for a long time, and it was only recently that she's felt well enough to be able to focus in and have enough energy to do these predictions. She suffers from an ailment of low energy. She's tired all the time. It's sort of like narcolepsy, where you're just tired all the time. But she got some new supplements, and she's been feeling better. So I thought I'd pass along some other cryptocurrencies. One of them we talked about in a previous video, which was Digivite. She feels very strongly that that's going to be I think it's 2 cents right now. The company hasn't done any marketing at all, and they've been doing product development and everything to have all their ducks in a row behind the scenes, and then later they're going to focus on advertising and product placement. So that's why that one really isn't real high. I think they haven't pumped it. The word they have for it is pump. So they haven't hyped it or pumped it. So it's been staying low. The other one that she felt really strongly about was Stellar Lumens. She saw the logo. I remember on the last video she talked about a new company that had a blue background and sort of either an arrow or a rocket in its logo. And when she saw the Stellar Lumens logo, she said something about it just clicked. She doesn't know whether or not it's because she saw something similar in her vision, which happened to be about another company coming in 2019 that she saw that has a phone. In other words, some sort of a phone, tablet, possibly even a computer that they're going to offer. Some new microchip, which the company had a blue background and some sort of a stylized either rocket or arrow in its logo, giving you the impression of something that goes fast, which is probably what this new chip is going to do. It's probably going to be a fast chip that gives more options and different things that other companies don't offer, like Apple. Anyway, when she saw Stellar Lumens, she says, I gotta have it. And so that's one of our picks. I don't have a lot of information on where it's going. I'm going to try to get her to get into a meditative state and ask some questions as to whether or not when this is by month, like we did before, when it's going to pop. One of the things I have to clarify about the other video was she gives predictions such as Bitcoin, for instance. She says in April Bitcoin will be down, and then she says it goes up a little bit in May. Well, this month of April, right now it's April 17th, we saw Bitcoin jump and go for a while, and then it kind of dumped. What she's saying when she says, well, it's down overall or it's up overall, she's not saying that it's going to go just down, 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 down with any ups. What she's saying is that compared to what's coming in the fall, that's when it's going to really move. These cryptocurrencies, for some reason, towards the fall, in the fourth quarter, either big investment money is going to pop in, something's going to happen where it's going to drive a rising tide, I guess you could say. A lot of these currencies are going to really pop. What or why that happens, she's not quite sure. But compared to the activity that all these cryptocurrencies are going to do, even though they may be up a little bit temporarily and then go down, kind of slump down, what she's talking about when she says up, up, up is that big move. Because what she was looking for was not a day trading type of position. For instance, if you were day trading and you saw bought Bitcoin and it jumped up $200, that's pretty good for you, because then you would take a profit and you'd pocket that profit, right? Well, what her strategy is to buy and hold for that big move at the end of the year. Not everybody has the ability to time these markets, nor do they have the ability to read charts and understand market dynamics and activity. And even then, it's hard to predict unless you for instance, if a psychic tuned in every day and then kind of predicted what tomorrow was going to bring. In other words, whether it be an up day or a down day. Well, she's not doing that. And if you don't have that ability, you're not going to know when a investor or someone holding Bitcoin decides to dump 6,000 Bitcoin one day. You could get caught. In other words, you could still be long or still buy Bitcoin as a day trader, and then get caught and actually try to get out on the way down and then actually lose money. So her strategy is to buy and hold, because even though the markets are going up and they're correcting, and yes, if you time that just right, you can increase your balance over a period of time overall if you are really good at it. But realistically, most people are not able to do that. Not able to sit in front of their computer and watch every tick. Most people have jobs. So the strategies that she and myself are doing is buying and holding, and then waiting for that big swing, loading up and then waiting for that big swing towards the end of the fourth quarter, or October, November, December. Not all of them are going to go up in October, but definitely November, December, January. You're going to see another, what they're probably going to call another tulip mania, or another big rise. And then we're off to the races. And then she predicts that most of these will have a slump again around tax time in the United States at around March time. So that doesn't mean there might not be volatility, but the idea, my strategy, is to sell as it's rising in January, and then you have a better chance of selling them as well, because once it starts topping and it starts correcting, then there's going to be a lot of sellers, and it's going to be a little harder to sell your coin and turn it into fiat currency if that's what you're going to do. We're obviously not going to sell all of ours. We're going to take a profit, but then once it corrects and goes down again, that's the time to buy. So if you're in these penny stock, or I shouldn't say penny stocks, these penny cryptos, for instance, Stellar Lumens at 3 cents, you can afford to load up, $1,000 worth, or maybe even $500 worth, or $300 worth is about, 17,000. So you can really load up on those, and then once it pops up and goes into the hundreds of dollars, you could still sell half and still have a huge amount in there and be in a very comfortable position as cryptos continue to raise in value. So I thought I'd give you that little update. As I get more from her, I'll let you know. One of the things that she said, I was really concerned about this whole Syria situation, and with the United States and England and France attacking Syria, and then of course Israel going in there and just bombing at will. I was concerned this was going to turn into something really ugly and nasty on an international scale. She feels that won't happen. In fact, she told me that, oh boy, when they first started dropping bombs, that she did not feel that this was going to turn into World War III. It may turn into some kind of regional scuffle, probably with Israel, but Syria is not going to be the trigger for a major war. So that's something that I was relieved to hear about. And every time that she's ever tuned in, for instance, North Korea, I should have made a video on North Korea. She insisted, even when it looked really grim, she said that that's not going to happen, that there's not going to be a nuclear exchange. North Korea is not going to launch against the United States, and there'll be normalized relations between North and South, and that's going to be a non-event. And sure enough, it's easy to say now after the fact. That's why you haven't seen much of North Korea in the news, because, well, it's a non-event. That doesn't mean it can't change. There might not be some hostilities, but as it is right now, that's not going to be the trigger for a major war either. So, with that being said, I'll keep you updated, and anything I get from Sharon, I'll be sure to pass on. So, load up on those cryptos, and she told me here day before yesterday, which was what, 17, 16, the 15th, I think it was, of April. She said she tuned in again about the cryptocurrencies, and she keeps getting a positive on it. In other words, when she asks, will these really go into the hundreds of dollars and some of them into the thousands, she got a yes, and she can't believe it herself. I mean, imagine you're positioned with, let's say, Theta coin, which I think is 10 cents right now. Imagine having, I have 17,000 of them, but imagine having, 50, 60,000 of them, and they go to $900 by January. You realize, this is a rare opportunity for people, and she can't even believe it. That's the thing about what she gets. Sometimes she argues, like, are you sure? So, she's just as skeptical as anybody. So, like she said, this could have the opportunity to really benefit people in this unique time that we're in right now. Behind the scenes, there is companies doing everything from putting dental, I think it's called Dental Bite, I think it is, one of them that is actually creating a digital currency for international dentists, and they'll probably put dental records on the blockchain and information, and also payment amounts. And behind the scenes too are credit cards that will normalize payments, so you could use your value out of your cryptocurrency, and it'll go through an exchange, and so you'll go to Walmart, and instead of sliding your Visa or MasterCard, you'll slide your Litecoin card. You understand how that will change the whole dynamic of buying and selling and of cryptocurrencies and their value. Really exciting times right now, and money's starting to come in. These cryptos are rising. Bitcoin, unfortunately, I believe is being manipulated. You have to understand, there's a trading desk, I believe at the Commodities Exchange. Now, don't quote me on that, but I think it's either Wall Street, it might be Wall Street actually, but I think it's as part of the Commodity Exchange. Very similar to gold and silver. And the reason why, in case you don't know, why gold and silver is so undervalued, especially silver, is because the way the markets work here in the United States, and probably other exchanges, I think Britain does the same thing. Commodities are set up, whether it's wheat, soybeans, orange juice, pork bellies, gold, silver, copper, whatever it is. The idea is that you could buy at today's price, February or March wheat. Well, the wheat isn't even out of the ground yet. It hasn't even been planted. Sometimes it hasn't even planted. But yet they are predicting one way or the other, whether or not the price of wheat is either going to go up, or there's going to be some kind of a bumper crop and the price will go down because they had a wonderful crop, or vice versa. Maybe there was a horrible rainstorm or a freeze and the price of wheat went way up, and because the crops were ruined. But the market allows people to buy something that doesn't exist. Now with gold and silver, they're doing the same thing. They are selling more gold and more silver sometimes than can be mined in an entire year. Well, you know they don't have it. And the system is so crooked that you can't even get delivery of it because they don't have it. Unlike any other markets where, I have a contract of wheat, which is 50,000 bushels, then I expect to get my wheat in February or March or whenever the contract comes due. Especially if I'm like Nabisco or some company that uses wheat, I want my wheat. So why is that any different with gold and silver? Well, because they don't have it. And so these banks are using paper and driving the price either up or down, which is highly illegal. But hey, what do you do when you have a collapsing monetary system? The government just looks the other way. And unfortunately, that's the reality. So what happens is if you have a trading desk that really it's like a side bet. Commodity markets, even the stock market, is like bookies. And imagine a whole upper row of bookies at a football game, and they're placing bets on whether or not they'll make 4 yards on the next down, or the next goal. They'll be betting on the point spread of how many goals were made and when, and of course they don't produce anything, they don't make anything, and really it's just side bets on the performance of the game, which is really what is of value. And so these exchanges, or I should say exchanges, these markets, they'll go what's called long, betting that something will increase in value, or they'll short it, which means they'll put a bet that it's going to go down in value. Well, if you've got deep pockets and you can go in, let's say on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has this type of thing going on now. They announced that they were going to do it, and I think they've started it, I think. Don't quote me on that, but if they haven't, they will. So imagine having deep pockets and you go in and buy 60,000 Bitcoin. Well, first of all, before you've done that, you've gone on the exchange and placed a bet that it's going to go higher. Okay? So then you go in and buy a load of Bitcoin. Well, lo and behold, it goes up. Okay? Then you take your money from that exchange, that market, and then you go short. Then you go to the Bitcoin and you dump it. What happens? Well, the market goes down. Gee whiz, who would have thought? And that's the way Bitcoin's going to be. And if this happens to other markets like Litecoin or Ethereum, you're going to see the same action, folks. I hope they don't do that. But, until there's regulation, until somebody says, you know what, you can't do that. Technically, I don't know if any of you folks remember in the United States during I think it was 1980, there was investors called the Hunt brothers, and they just went in and did the same thing. They put bets on the market, and then they went in and just drove the market up by buying a huge amount of silver. And of course it drove the market up, and they made double their money because they had positions that were long in silver. Well, you should have saw the hammer that came down on the Hunt brothers, right? The banks are doing it constantly now, and nobody says a word. Well, I shouldn't say nobody says a word. There are groups out there that have proven over and over again that this manipulation is happening, and some banks have been caught and penalized, but the penalty, I guarantee, is a fraction of what they probably made, which is why it's a shame. Just a slap on the wrist, if you ask me. They need perp walks with people going to prison. But, it's just a slap on the back and a wink wink and a nod. And to keep this whole charade going, they look the other way. They cannot have gold and silver, which is an indicator of whether or not the fiat currency is healthy or not. They can't have that rising, making people nervous that there's something wrong with the equity markets or the U.S. dollar or something, because people look pretty closely at precious metals, and when they get nervous, people sell on the stock market, and they look to put their money somewhere. And if gold and silver is rising, well, they get in there and they hedge their bets, and they either retain the value of their money or they make a little bit. But the banks know that, and the government knows that, and they've kind of tidied up that little safety net there, and have driven the prices down to ridiculously low levels for what they're really valued at. With inflation, price inflation and adjustment, gold should be somewhere around 4,000 or 5,000 at least per ounce, and silver should be up at least minimum $40, $40 to $50. It's trading just under $17. They can't even hardly mine it out of the ground. In fact, it's getting so rare now that it's getting harder and harder to get in some places. The United States isn't so bad because too many people are asleep. They've been brainwashed and told that gold and silver is not real money, it's old relic, and it's you don't want it, it's not good. Meanwhile, banks are hoarding extreme. JP Morgan, I think, has the largest hold of silver that they know of in the United States, I believe. I forgot how many millions of ounces. Why are they holding that if it's not valuable? What do they know? What does Russia and China and India, what do they know about gold and silver? Look at Venezuela. They took their bolivar and their dollar, and they pegged it to gold. What happened? The value of their dollar increased. Why would that happen if gold isn't really a monetary metal? Well, of course it is. And so it stabilized somewhat their currency. So, don't look at what they say, look at what they do. And they're hoarding it. If I won't tell you, this isn't designed to tell you what to do or give you financial advice in any way. I'm just telling you what the facts are and what we're doing. And we're doing both gold and silver and also cryptocurrencies, because this is the cashless society that they're going to use. And why not? Imagine if the country was heavily invested in cryptocurrencies, and there was actually an infrastructure where you can go to Walmart and buy food for Litecoin or Bitcoin or whatever, and you could also buy gas, and companies were switching over and kind of using both, but also using Bitcoin and other currencies to exchange goods and services. And then what would happen if the dollar crashes? Well, you've got an alternate system of exchange. Otherwise, there's nothing. So, imagine if credit froze up, you wouldn't have anything going on in this country, because the entire country is designed to run on short-term credit, short-term and long-term. But a lot of companies use a revolving credit to do payroll. Sometimes they make things or they do things that they won't get paid until later, or they wait for sales to come in later. So they still have expenses and employees and things that they need to actually exist and be in business in the meantime. And they float, low-term interest rate loans until they get their money, and then they pay that back. The bank makes a percentage because of the interest. And the company makes payroll and pays their bills, and they get to continue to be in business. Once that grinds to a halt with the current system, you would have a nation that has collapsed. Well, there's some people that say that, they want that. Well, they may want a collapse of the system, but it would only be because they've got an alternate system in place that they can benefit from. You can believe that. It doesn't do these oligarchs and these multi-billionaires any good to be holding some sort of currency that's now worthless. So they need an alternate currency, whether it's gold or silver. But gold and silver is not a exchangeable currency in practical terms to be, carrying around in your pocket. You need to have it you need to have some sort of a fractional currency that can be used in exchange for gold and silver. For instance, let's say the value of the US dollar went to zero. Okay, what value would Bitcoin have? You ever wonder about that? What value would Litecoin have? Okay, well, the US dollar went to zero. Okay, let's say it hyperinflated. Whenever we say zero, it's always because it's hyperinflated, like a Zimbabwe dollar. So you're buying an egg, and it takes 50,000 Zimbabwe dollars. Okay, well, it's 50,000 Zimbabwe dollars. You say, well, that's not zero, but really, if you think about it, that's zero. You know, it's worth less than a penny. So, you know, let's say that Litecoin goes up to $250,000 per Litecoin. Well, you know, you need, in other words, these cryptocurrencies need something of a standard to be valued against. You can't value it against a sandwich. Well, the sandwich has a value of what? So it takes one bit Litecoin to buy a sandwich. Okay, what does that mean? What value is that? So you need something. These cryptos need to be pegged against something. And right now, unless you use them directly, which right now there's a few places that will take it, but it's not as widespread as it could be. But let's say every single vendor in the world would take, let's say, Litecoin, for instance. Okay, what monetary value peg would you peg it against to be able to have a level of exchange value? You kind of need something. So if, let's say, and you better believe this is what's going to happen, if Russia and China have, let's say, millions, well, I shouldn't say a million, thousands of tons of gold, okay, and they have a current value of, let's just say it's a U.S. value, which is a little over $1,300, $1,326 per ounce of U.S. dollar. Well, let's say that you want to take your cryptocurrency, or even your own currency, let's say the ruble. You've got all this gold. Well, what better way of increasing the value of your currency than to readjust the value that it's pegged to, which in this case would be gold. So all of a sudden, let's make gold, instead of $1,300 an ounce, let's make gold $50,000 an ounce. Well, now we can pay off a lot of debts, can't we? We've actually increased the value, and now we're more rich than we were before. We certainly don't want to get more poor. That's not why they're collecting all this gold. So cryptocurrencies, at least for a while, are going to have to be pegged against something. And what that will be in the future, who knows? There might still be some sort of either a Federal Reserve or a Treasury note, depending on what the future holds for the United States. But it will be pegged against something, because and it could be gold and silver or a commodity. I know there's some cryptos out there that are pegged against diamonds, oil, which is really cheap, by the way, and other commodities. So, you know, whatever they peg to, the market will decide on what value that is. And but you understand that it could actually save a nation's economy by having something already in place with an infrastructure already going, so that if the old system collapses, the dollar collapses or hyperinflates, you still have a way for people to do commerce. Banks can still do commerce. You know, things can still be bought and sold. So with all that said, I really believe, and I'm not the only one, that they are trying to keep this quiet about cryptocurrencies. They're not educating people. They're kind of discouraging them a little bit while they position themselves with it being cheap right now. But once the buying starts, and once the big billion-dollar investors start pouring into it, then it's going to be trying to catch a tiger by the tail, and you probably won't see these prices ever. Do you think you'll ever see Bitcoin at $1.50? I really doubt it. I really do. If you see that, then I would think that the system would be under attack in some way, and they do intend to get rid of it completely. But see, they haven't done that. They've legitimized, if anything, cryptocurrencies. So that tells you a lot right there. They're crypto assets taxed with capital gains. They are legit, my friends. Now, not every country, like India, is prepared to deal with it right now. Doesn't mean they won't deal with it later with their own system. But, China is trying to get it control. I think they've outlawed cryptos for now. But until they can get control of it, they'll keep it under their thumb. But you can bet when they're ready to offer their own cryptocurrencies, they'll be in control of it and they'll profit from it. So, I think that's what some of these countries are doing. They're not saying we don't want it forevermore. They're saying we got to kind of control this until we can figure out how to benefit from it, control it, because we don't want our money going out of the country. And if it goes into an exchange and it ends up, the value ends up somewhere out of the country, they're afraid of that. So anyway, well, bye for now, and I'll keep you updated with more when Sharon is up to it. So from all of us here at Evolutionary Journeys, we wish you love, light, and clarity. Be well.